Account 4, The Child Story. I was only 8 years old when it all began. At that age, my imagination was vivid, and any shadow in my room could turn into a monster. At least, that's what my parents thought when I ran into their room in the middle of the night, saying that someone was in my room. They always told me it was just a dream, that I needed to go back to sleep. But I knew it wasn't just that. I knew there was something, or someone, visiting me while everyone else slept. We lived in a simple house in a quiet town. My room was small, with a bed pushed against the wall, a messy desk, and a window overlooking the backyard. At night, the only light came from the moon, casting a soft glow on the curtains. The silence was absolute, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Everything seemed normal until one night when I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't fear exactly, but a restlessness that made my heart race. When I opened my eyes, I realized the room was brighter than it should have been. A faint but steady light seemed to be coming from the window. I thought it might be the full moon, but the light wasn't white. It was bluish, almost metallic. I lay there for a few seconds trying to understand what was happening, until I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The shadows. There were shadows in the room, but they weren't coming from me or the furniture. They were tall, thin, and seemed to move even though there was no wind or sound. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. I wanted to scream, to call my parents, but something stopped me. It was as if my voice had disappeared. When I finally managed to open my eyes again, the shadows were gone, and the room was as dark as it should have been. I ran to my parents' room, crying and saying they were there. My mom hugged me and told me it was just a nightmare. My dad walked me back to my room, looked around and said, "There's nothing here. Go to sleep, everything's fine." But I knew everything wasn't fine. In the nights that followed, I started waking up often in the middle of the night. I always felt the same thing. An unexplainable light in the room, shadows that seemed to move, and a presence I couldn't see but could feel. It was as if something was watching me, studying me. I tried telling my parents again, but they said I was watching too many movies or that it was all in my head. They didn't believe me, but I was certain it was real. The nighttime visits continued, and as the days went by, things started getting stranger. It wasn't just the lights or the shadows anymore. I began waking up with strange marks on my body, small reddish circles on my arms or legs, like insect bites, but without any pain or itching. When I showed them to my parents, my mom said it was just allergies and that I needed to stop worrying. But I knew it wasn't that. The marks were too perfect, almost geometric, and they always appeared after a night when I felt like I was being watched. One night, I woke up again to that bluish light flooding my room. This time, it was brighter, almost as if someone had placed a glowing lamp right outside my window. But when I looked, there was nothing. No source of light, no movement. The room was silent, but something was off. My desk was different. The papers that were always stacked in the corner were scattered across the floor. My chair, which I always left pushed against the wall, was now turned toward the middle of the room. My heart raced. I knew I hadn't left my room like that before going to bed. Something, or someone, had been there. It was the first time I felt genuine, paralyzing fear. My instinct was to run to my parents' room, but something stopped me. It was as if a voice in my head whispered, "Stay where you are." With my heart pounding in my chest, I lay back down and shut my eyes, trying to block it all out. Then I heard it. A sound. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it didn't sound human. It was a mixture of tones, as if multiple voices were speaking at once in a language I couldn't understand. It was coming from inside the room. I mustered the courage to open my eyes, and when I looked toward the corner near the window, I saw something I will never forget. There were figures there. They were tall, slender, and their forms were hard to make out, as if they were shrouded in mist. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the bluish light that filled the room. I couldn't move a single muscle. I could only stare. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but suddenly, everything disappeared. The figures, the light, the sound, it all vanished in the blink of an eye. The room was dark again, and I felt as though I'd just woken up from a nightmare. But I knew I was wide awake. The next morning, I told my parents everything again, but they laughed and said I was making up stories. I felt alone, helpless, with no one to believe me. It was at that moment I realized, Whatever this was, I would have to face it by myself. Years have passed, but the memories of that time are as vivid as the day it all happened. For a long time, I tried convincing myself it was just dreams or the product of a child's imagination. But there are details, little things that I've never been able to ignore. The marks on my body, the scattered papers, the chair's position, all of it was too real to be dismissed as fantasy. For years, I avoided talking about it. Who would believe a child claiming to be visited by beings in the night? Even my parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, thought I was making it up or that I needed to stop watching cartoons before bed. Their disbelief was, in some ways, the hardest part. The fact that no one believed me made me question my own sanity. But deep down, I knew. I knew it had happened. Even as an adult, I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with that same feeling, the sensation of being watched. It's a shiver that runs up my spine, an unease I can't explain. What's even stranger is that, on some of those nights, I notice small details that take me back to that time. A misplaced object, a faint sound coming from some corner of the house, or even a vivid dream where I see those figures again. As if they never truly left. The scariest part of all is that these memories never fade. No matter how many years have passed, I can recall the lights, the sounds, and those glowing eyes with perfect clarity. Sometimes I wonder, what did they want? Why were they there? And most of all, why did they choose me? I've never found answers, and maybe I never will. But one thing I know for sure, they were real. Whatever they were, I know what I saw, what I felt. Today I share this story so you'll know that these things can happen. Maybe not to me again, but to someone somewhere. Sometimes I watch children playing in the streets and wonder, is one of them going through something similar? Does anyone else wake up in the middle of the night with the feeling they're not alone? Deep down, I believe those visits never truly ended. They've just paused, waiting for the right moment to start again. Maybe with me, maybe with someone else. But if it ever happens to you, I want you to know, it's not just your imagination. Because even now, as I tell this story, I can't shake the feeling that they're still watching me.